I got my ass handed to me last night. I sat in ceremony, maybe my maybe as many as the 75th time I've done this over the last couple of years, and it was one of the hardest ones I've ever done. Things were going reasonably well through the first half, up through the stereo myth. I remember working my way up through using the Jane's Addiction song 3 days, and things seemed to be going fine. And then something happened. I felt a presence arrive. Something uninvited slipped into my consciousness, and from then on, it was a terrific struggle on many fronts. For one thing, um, I never tipped over. There's this always this sense when I do this work that for the first hour and a half or so, I'm simply me laboring under the stress of the psychic stress of the substantia. But always at a certain point, there's a phase change, and I become, pa damn it, my shamanic superhero self that can handle all that energy, and it becomes a joy. It's no longer this. There's no nausea. There's just sense of complete freedom and complete belief. I call it entering belief space. I don't know how else to put it. You move into this frame of mind where the existence of the divine and spirits you can communicate with is simply undeniable. And you're getting all kinds of really remarkable inner images of this archetypal content, and you're really able to dig in, especially through the transcendental disco, the second part of the ceremony, able to dig into the emotional content of the songs and really experience those intense emotions. And last night I was not able to do any of that. Never emerged as pod damn it, was unable to get into the songs. And for the first time that I can remember, it must have happened before, but I honestly can't remember it. Like 2.5 hours in, I was actively wishing for it would just be over, and the last hour or so was just misery, just pure misery. Um, the uh, the imagery that I was getting was all distorted and sort of very just ugly, you know. And I was extremely physically uncomfortable, and there was no joy. Maybe that was the worst part of it. There was a complete absence of joy, and there was a complete absence of that sense of presence. That is the whole reason why I do this. When things go well, at a certain point, I plug in, and I am revitalized. I kind of jokingly use the analogy of Green Lantern holding his ring up to his railroad lamp and charging up, and that's what I do. Um, and then the next day, although I'm usually physically exhausted because I only slept for maybe 4 hours or something, I am so buoyed, so happy, so electric with spirit, so energized. And today I just had none of that at all. And in fact, by the time the ceremony was done last night, I was thinking, I don't think I ever want to do this again. It was so hard and so scary. And it's worth looking at first why that may have happened. Well, the probably the real reason is I tried to game things last night. I worked with 7 grams of the substantia, and I purposefully took a CBD mint at around about 2.5 hours or 3 hours or so before the ceremony began, because once before I had done that inadvertently, and it yes, it had suppressed the the hallucinogenic and entheogenic um, effects of the medicine. But at a certain point, when I smoked some pot, it completely opened up, and it was like this dam breaking, and it was really outrageously vivid and fun. The visions were spectacular. The energy was amazing. The sense of magic was palpable, you know, and that just didn't happen last night. And so I have a sense that for whatever reason, um, the CBD just suppressed my ability to access that part of the substantia's energy. Now that's one possible reason, right? Another one was, well, I've done it like the last 3 weeks in a row or 4 weeks in a row, and maybe I'm just redlining. Another one is I've been using a combination of Syrian rue and the substantia, and last night I didn't. I just used the straight substance, still at a pretty hefty dose of 7 grams, but considering what I've been doing, that felt like you know downshifting. That wasn't really the worry. But at the end of the night, I was pretty traumatized. I was pretty unhappy for a variety of reasons. One was which is I have my first show coming up in about 7 weeks, and what if that happens when I'm on stage in front of people? You know. And then another thought is, what if it never works again? What if I can never achieve that state again? What does that mean for me after everything I've given to this project and everything I've invested in trying to grow my belief that everything I've seen and felt and experienced is real and should be taken seriously? What am I left with then? You know, not a lot. that's that's the sad truth. It's like this. My first church project has given a shape and a meaning to my life that simply was not there a couple years ago. It's made everything make sense. Every odd circumstance in my life makes sense within the context of this work, if it's for real, if the goddess is real, if I really received some sort of vocation or some higher order aspect of myself volunteered for a mission to bring this into the world. It makes terrific sense. It's like a great novel. And if not, then I really don't have anything, you know. So that's a terrifying thought, but yet one that needs to be. You got to look at it straight on, which takes some guts, you know. Um, and there's been some lingering sort of superstitious fear of like possession and things like that, but uh, as that little voice in my head tells me, well, if you're gonna entertain those kind of ideas, then you might as well hang on to the idea that you're actually receiving protection from on high, and that what happened to you was simply them just letting a little bit of all that shaitana, that spiritual witchcraft, that is the resistance that's surrounding you, and they're normally holding off. They let some of it in order to see how you would do. And the fact of the matter is, I didn't quit. I wanted to so much. I just wanted it to be over, but I brought it home, as painful and as unhappy as it was. And that in itself is a kind of victory, or if not a victory, it's not a total wash. There's something to be gained from it. Something was gained by it. I survived it. I'll learn from it. There were a few other, besides the CBD thing, there were a few other details that I kind of cut corners on this time. I didn't fast the entire day as I normally did. I had lunch at noon, and I also didn't completely clear the space energetically before the ceremony. Any and all of those things could contribute, you know. And so now the question is, what do you do? How do you go forward? Well, I think you have to think of it in terms of like, it's like losing a fight, like a boxing match or a kickboxing match, or taking a beating or getting knocked out. How do people come back from that, knowing what can happen? Because when you have success after success after success, it's easy to think that you've got it wired. But once you see how badly things can go wrong and understand that there's really a lot on the line, that changes things. Some people don't come back from that. I was talking with my friend about Ronda Rousey. You know, when she got knocked out, she was done. And yet there are other people like, say, like Michael Bisping, who suffer some really heartbreaking losses and still persevere and achieve their goal. And I guess that's my answer is I'm going to persevere. I'm going to take next week off. Maybe even the week after that. I don't know. We'll see. I'll wait until I'm hungry for it again. And in the meantime, I can do all the things that I would normally do to be supporting my practice in terms of training hard and meditating and doing my singing practice and doing practical stuff to rehearse for the show, like practicing costume changes or setting up the lights and making sure that everything's working along those lines and stuff like that. And just have to have faith that the next time I sit, it's going to be okay. And that's the message that I get from listening to that little voice in my head, voice of my soul, as I like to imagine it. To not be deterred and to not despair. And to continue to act in accordance with my understanding of the true will. So I guess that's what I'm going to try to do. Tomorrow's another day.